The while loop has a close cousin, that is the do-while loop. I will note that the do-while loop is probably the least frequently used loop in just about any language that bothers to have it. Syntactically, the do-while loop is very similar to the while loop, except that it starts with the word do and ends with the while and the condition. And once again, the condition needs to be Boolean. And in between, we have the body of the loop. Whereas the while loop was a pre-check loop, so the condition was up here at the top and the condition happened before the body ever happened. That's not the case for the do-while loop. The do-while loop, as it's written out, will hit the body first and then check the condition. If the condition's true, it will do the body again, condition, body, boom, boom, boom. This means that the do-while loop, the body always happens once, at least once. Whereas the while loop, it's possible for the body to happen 0 times. Now, where would you use a do-while loop? I find that in my own programming, well, I pretty much only use it for teaching stuff, but the situation where it's somewhat useful is if I have a text-based menu. So the user is going to type something in, and I know that they have to select an option from the menu at least once. And in that situation, I find that the do-while loop can be helpful. So we could write a little program that has a menu. The menu, the program that I want to write here is just something that does like a little grade calculation. We're going to do this in a very simple way to keep things short so that it fits nicely into a video. Print line. Good. So I'm just going to have 2 types of grades for this class. This is, as I said, a very simple class. It has tests and it has assignments, and that's it. So option 1 is enter a test grade. Option 2, enter an assignment grade. And then option 3 is quit. Very simple little menu for us. We're going to have a variable for the input. Now in this case, all the options are numbers, so I'm just going to set this to 0. And then do while input is not equal to 3, we're going to keep going. First thing I want to do is call the print menu function, and then I want to set input equal to a read int, and then what I do is based upon the value that they type in. So input, I'm going to use a match here instead of a set of ifs, just because I feel like it. So the first case is if they typed in a 1, then I need to, the only point of entering grades is to see the average. So 3 is actually going to be print average. And then quit becomes number 4. Okay, so case 1, they are supposed to enter a new grade, and that is added on to a list of test grades. Print line, enter a grade. Of course, we know enough to make this significantly more complex than what I'm doing here. It's just for time restrictions. I don't want to add too much complexity to it. So val grade equals read int. And then what happens next? Well, we need to append that grade to a list. So I'm going to need to come out here and actually create 2 lists. Test grades is a list of int with nothing in it, and assignment grades is also a list of ints with nothing in it. And I don't actually need to give this a name. I can just say test grades cons equals read int. Okay. We'll copy those 3 lines. We'll paste them. Case 2 also enters a grade, but instead of being a test grade, it's an assignment grade. Case 3 will be print line, and I'm doing a string interpolation here just to remind you that S in front says that it allows me to stick variables in with dollar signs or more complex expressions. Actually, it won't be as beneficial for this one. No, we'll go with it. The average is, and I'm going to assume I have a function for calculating the average. And we'll go and we'll write that in just a second. Test grades and assignment grades will be passed in. Case 4, do nothing. Case anything else, print line. What was that? So we need to write the calc average function up here. Def calc average takes tests, which is a list of int, and it takes assignments, which is a list of int, and it's going to return a double because it's very unlikely that the average is going to be exactly an integer. And I'm going to go with a simple formula where both tests and assignments are 50% of their grade. So 0.5 times the average of tests, which is test.sum divided by test.length, plus 0.5 times assignments.sum divided by assignments.length. Of course, both of these will blow up if they have 0 grades entered for something, and they probably should wind up contributing 0 instead. I leave it as an exercise to the user to make that calc average a little bit safer for us to use. Our goal here is to show that the do while does what we want and does it nicely. So, see how many errors we have. Calc average needs to close off right there. Okay, and I'm once again missing my import. I hit colon WQ over in the input, and that's not allowed input there. Import io.stdin._. It was supposed to read an int, and colon WQ is distinctly not an int. Okay, so let's input a test grade. They get 100 on the first test, and on the second test they get a 90, and then an assignment grade, we'll go with an 80 and stop there. And so we have the test part of their average is a 95, the assignment part of their average is an 80, and so we get an 87.5, which looks like the correct value. I'll type in a 6 so that we can see that that works, and then a 4, and we quit. So, nice little example of a program. It has a menu, and because the user always needs to type in their option at least once, it makes reasonable sense to use a do-while loop here. It turns out you never actually have to use a do-while loop. You can always structure the logic so that you're using a regular while loop, but there are situations like this where if it's always going to happen once, the do-while loop might be a slightly nicer solution.